freeze up, bro. All right, man. We're back, guys. We're back, and you might have been wondering where me and Archie have been, but life is doing life right now, and we never let any. Like I say all the time, we don't ever let anything hold us down. So whether it's tough or whatever, we're still going. The Hammer Fist podcast. We're back, representing MMAFightPass.com, guys. You can tune in through Facebook or the website MMAFightPass.com. Myself, Tom Owens, my partner Archie Tovar. And guys, today's guest needs no introduction at all. I'm sure all you know who he is, but let me give you a little introduction. He was three-time UFC heavyweight champion, guys. Three-time heavyweight champion of the UFC. Two-time light heavyweight champion. This man was 101st Airborne Sergeant in the Army. He's a family man. He's got kids that are doing their thing. He's an actor. He's a coach. He's a great father. I'd like to welcome a great inspiration to myself and Archie and a lot of you guys out there, Randy, the Natural Couture. Randy, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, welcome, Randy.
Thank you for coming on the show today, Randy. I've tried for a long time to get a hold of you, and different guys. Like, I'm always looking for the OGs, man. Like you and Dan Severn have been on my hit list for the last year.
Oh.
But I know you've been busy, man, and I follow not just you but your son. And congratulations with him. I've seen him in the headlines recently. Looks like he's doing real well. But anyway, hey, thanks for getting back to me yesterday, guys. This happened at the last minute. Normally, me and Archie will give you guys 4 or 5 days in advance. But something like this, I'm not going to skip the opportunity when it's Randy Couture. Last week we had Dewey Cooper, and this week it's Randy Couture. So. The guests keep getting better and better and better, right, Archie?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to have you, Randy, with us. Right before we went live, we talked about how much we follow you, and we'll keep on talking about, how much you mean to the Central Valley. We're here in Central California,
Okay.
we're in Fresno area, the hotbed of wrestling, actually. Here we have the Central Valley High School, Selma. As a matter of fact, the community that I live in, we just had 2 national champions. Today they were crowned brother sister, the Figueroa brothers and sisters. Yeah, they were. It really is. They're 2 national. They just won today earlier, just like about 5 hours ago, boys and girls division, and that's how much of a hotbed wrestling is here. And then all that transitions into MMA, of course, right? And no other better person to speak of the transition from grappling wrestling into MMA, right, Tom?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What do you think, Randy?
I certainly think wrestling has a new professional outlet, and that is mixed martial arts. I think we didn't have a professional outlet unless you wanted to go into pro wrestling, which obviously we know is a form of entertainment. It's not a real competition. So I think MMA has really stepped up and become that professional outlet for a lot of amateur wrestlers, whether it's just collegiate wrestling or the Olympic styles as well. So it's been pretty cool to be part of that transition.
It's been really something else, man. And like you said, the Central Valley here, there's not really a whole lot to do, you know what I mean, for these kids. And there are just some very tough young individuals that are doing the wrestling around here, not just freestyle, but also Greco-Roman wrestling. And going back into the earlier UFCs, one of the, I was doing jiu-jitsu. I didn't really know how successful a wrestler could be. But I remember when Dan Severn was the first Greco style wrestler that I saw in the UFC. I think it was maybe UFC 3 or 4. And I just didn't realize the power that a Greco wrestler had. Were you watching those fights way back in the day, Randy?
I saw some of those, but not in real time. I hadn't really tuned into the sport until 2006, and obviously it started back in 2003 here in the U.S. So I was coaching at Oregon State, wrestling for the national team, for the Greco team, and one of my athletes in the summer of '96 brought this VHS tape over and said, "Man, you got to see this." And plugged in this VHS, and it just happened to be Don Fry fighting on that card, who was one of my teammates at Oklahoma State. His senior year was my freshman year at Okie State. And I was like, holy cow, I know that dude. We used to train together all the time, and we were good friends. Me, him, and Chris Barnes were the only 3 guys on the team that were married at the time. So we hung out a lot. And here see him in the cage fighting and was immediately intrigued and saw the application of years and years of wrestling experience. So it was a little different back then. You filled out an application and sent it in to the company and said, "Hey, I'd love to fight in your show." And they kind of put me off. They said, no, we've got enough wrestlers. We want more exotic martial artists, and but we'll put you on the alternate list. And so I ended up on the alternate list, and then the spring of 1997 rolls around, and they called me up on short notice, want to know if I wanted to fight in UFC 13, and I said, "Heck yeah!"
Wow.
And next thing you know, 3 weeks later, I've got my first fight. So
Now at that time, Randy, I know you were heavily into wrestling, but you had I had always heard that you had boxing experience, and they talked about it. Where did you? Because there was a difference with you.
That's funny to me because
yeah.
The limit of my boxing experience was a 3-week training camp in the Army at Fort Rucker, Alabama. I was going through AIT. I was part of the air traffic controllers unit there that was all in training to learn to be air traffic controllers. They also trained mechanics for the aircraft and the pilots, the student pilots, the guys that were learning to fly those aircraft. So at that time, it was a big aviation unit. And they had a big boxing smoker kind of in between, against the other units. And I'm like, I'll do anything to get out of running in formation in these boots. Boxing, yes, I'm in. Sign me up. And so I trained for 3 weeks to try and get a match in that boxing smoker. I never got a match. I did the training, but never got a match. So that was one of the things that made me laugh about that UFC 13 broadcast is they said I had extensive boxing training.
Right.
And 3 weeks is hardly what I would call extensive, but all this, I was always intrigued by boxing. I wanted to box when I was a kid. My neighbors were going to the Linwood Elks where I grew up, to the boxing club there. And my mom's like, "Nope, you can do whatever you want. You can play football, but you are not boxing." She would not allow it. So
Wow.
I got caught sneaking away to go train in boxing, but she caught me pretty quick. I didn't get many practices in before she put the hammer down on me.
Well, one thing I did notice about
I
yeah.
tease her now because I spent 14 years as a professional fighter. She's like, "Yeah, I should have just let you box then. You would have got it out of your system." But
Right.
yeah,
it's hard to get away with anything with the mom. One thing though that really interested me, and it was something different that I saw, and you were one of the first guys to do this, is that you actually incorporated like what I would call a dirty boxing type of style. You were one of the first guys that I saw do this, where you were using the underhooks and the neck ties, and you were adding the boxing into it. Is that a collar tie? That's what you call it?
Really came out in my second UFC competition against Vitor Belfort. I knew I had to get my hands on him and slow him down and tie him up and try to wear him out. And certainly Greco pummeling and using that collar tie and moving your feet and not standing in front of a guy that's that explosive was very important. And that's kind of when dirty boxing, obviously me, Matt Lindland and Dan Henderson were all training at Team Quest then, and sharing and trying to figure out ways to implement our wrestling backgrounds into fighting and fighting situations, and pummeling and especially with the solid barrier worked out great. Of the three American styles of wrestling, I've always felt Greco translated to fighting as well as any of them.
Oh, definitely. It's a huge part of it. Now, when you started wrestling, as a young man, I don't know how old you were, but was it freestyle or Greco the first style of wrestling? And how old were you?
I never honestly wrestled freestyle or Greco till I got in the Army at 19 years old. I was a collegiate. I wrestled the collegiate season in junior high and the collegiate season all through high school. I never wrestled in the spring or summer. I never went to the junior nationals. I had never tried the freestyle or Greco. So that was a new thing for me, stationed in Germany, brand new soldier, in E2, at my first duty station at Fliegerhorst Kaserne in West Germany. And this lieutenant grabbed a hold of me at the gym and said, "Hey, are you a wrestler?" I didn't have the cauliflower ears back then. I didn't get those
Jealous,
until
bro.
I started trying to make the Army team. So he said, "Hey, are you wrestling?" I said, "Yeah, I wrestled in high school." And he said, "Well, come on." He started taking me to German club, and then getting a van out and taking a bunch of us to different bases around Europe for tournaments. And it was always in freestyle and Greco. And I wasn't afraid of either style, but I'd never done Greco at all. And accidentally ended up on a Greco mat at the Fifth Corps Championships. I had only wrestled freestyle at that point, and they put me accidentally on the Greco bracket too, and started calling my name for a match. And I'm like, what the heck? I just got done with a freestyle. What are you doing? And they're like, well, you're on the Greco bracket. Are you going to wrestle or not? And I'm like, okay. I ended up wrestling the Greco and ended up winning the day Greco tournament. And I was hooked from then on. And the services focused a lot on Greco. Most of us, never went to college. We went right out of high school and into the service with our wrestling backgrounds in collegiate style. And therefore, I think the armed forces do very, very well at the national level and international level. We've had several world champions, and a lot of guys make the Olympic team coming from representing the service in the inter-service championship. So pretty interesting how things just came together. 19, getting married, had a kid on the way. I thought wrestling was done for me, and then joined the Army to support that new family. And lo and behold, ended up back on the mat in Germany. And made the All-Army team and qualified, won the inter-service championship, which qualified me for the Olympic trials. And so you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You
I
were
have a Greco.
19?
What's that?
19 at the time?
Yeah, 19 years old when I joined the service. I was in for 6 years, 19 to 25. Pretty important time in my life, honestly.
Yeah.
And the 101st Airborne, sorry, Archie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Can you talk? Would you mind talking about that a little bit? You made the rank sergeant in the 101st Airborne. What is that exactly?
I was in for 6 years. My last duty station was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I made the rank of E5 when I was there. Went through air assault school there, primary leadership school there with the 101st. I was originally signed to the 192nd Air Traffic Control Company because I was trained as an air traffic controller, like I said. And my commander was like, we spent a lot of money to train you as an air traffic controller. By God, you're going to be an air traffic controller. He would not release me for that year to go train with the Army team and go to inter-service again. And I'd already been at that point a couple time inter-service champ and working my way up in the national rankings, heading towards the 88 Olympics. So the Army coach, Coach Floyd, called the Department of Defense, wrote some letters, basically got me released from the 192nd Air Traffic Control Company and the 118th Airborne Corps. And they sent me over to the garrison unit for the 101st. And I actually worked in the sports department with intramural sports, engraving trophies and
Wow.
looking at all the equipment and storing all the equipment that we had for intramural sports on that base. Pretty interesting situation, but yeah, it was a great place to be. I loved going through air assault school. I put in for jump school twice, and both times I got dates because I was a non-combat arms MOS. It happened to conflict with all Army wrestling, and there was no way I was going to sit out a year just to go to jump school. So I never actually made it to jump school. I did go through air assault school there, though.
That's so interesting, man. So when you left, when you came out of the Army after that time, did you go back into training wrestling, or did you go back to being a family man?
Uh, I managed to make it to the final trials for the United States team in 1988. All these college coaches are like, "Who the heck is this guy? Where did he come from?"
Right.
I got no attention out of high school. I was a one-time state champ from Washington. None of the college coaches, like I said, I never wrestled freestyle or Greco, so I never went to the juniors, which is a place where they recruit a lot of those athletes that end up with college scholarships. I never did any of that. So now all of a sudden I come out of the blue and I'm, ranked in the top 3 in Greco and beating a lot of guys that were coming from college programs. So all these coaches were like, "Who is this guy?" And because I joined the service at 19, I had all my eligibility. So the phone started ringing. All these college coaches were like, "Hey, we'd love you to come wrestle for our program." that's against Mike Foy right there. That's a big match in
Look at that
1990.
hair. Look at that beautiful
Yeah,
hair.
I grew some hockey hair after my Army time, so
Bro,
that that was back in
mine's
19.
gone too, man. I can't tell. I had like
I
a
think
nice mullet a mullet at one time. It's
yeah,
gone.
I think God says, "Oh, you want to grow a mullet? Okay, poof, you
Yeah,
grow a mullet."
that was punishment. Like you want a mullet? You want a mullet with a little grease on it? Here you go,
Yeah.
buddy. That's
Oh,
that's so cool, man. At that time in the '88 Olympics, where were they at that time?
they were in Seoul, Korea. Yeah,
Oh,
I was an
Korea.
alternate on I was an alternate on that team. I didn't make the team, but I was certainly on my way towards achieving that goal, and made the world team 4 times, which is the same process as in the non-Olympic years, and then didn't make. Never made the Olympic team. I was an alternate, 88 through 2000. All 4 of those Olympics.
Did you get any matches as an alternate or no?
No, you don't get to wrestle unless the guy at your weight is injured before that very first weigh-in. You're not going to get to wrestle. Once the tournament starts,
Yeah.
if that guy doesn't, it only you only get to wrestle if your guy got hurt somehow in training leading up to the Olympics. It's just how wrestling's set up. So,
Man, that's an interesting experience regardless. What
yeah,
was Korea like?
everything worked out as it was supposed to. I believe if I'd have made the team and won my medal, I would have never forayed into mixed martial arts. The fire would not have been there. I would have been
Wow.
satisfied with what I'd accomplished and gone on and just continued to coach at the college level. And look what I'd have missed out on. So, think you got to take things as they are and look at the positive side of things. Those losses, those setbacks, I think motivated me to continue to compete. Even though I was, breaking in, I was 33 when I decided to try my hand at mixed martial arts. Just coming off the 96 games where, again, I was in the final trials, number 1 guy in my weight. Everybody thought that I would be the guy to make that team and go on and win a medal in Atlanta, and it just didn't happen. I lost in the final trial. Um, you know, I didn't kind of start to figure things out until I transitioned to fighting. And people would ask me, what do you get more nervous about, a match or, a wrestling match or a fight? And I was like, that's an interesting question. I'm way more uptight and way more nervous about a wrestling match than I am a fight, which seemed counterintuitive. In a fight, you may get knocked the heck out. And a wrestling match, obviously, that's not really a part of the rules of engagement. So it seemed odd to me, but an honest answer was that I was way more uptight for wrestling matches than I was for fighting. I was having a blast training and fighting and going out there and fighting. It was awesome. I was learning new skills every single week, where the things I was learning at that level in Greco were minute, little adjustments in your grip and the way you're doing certain things to try and stay at the top of the game.
Now, your first fight with Tony in the UFC, um, did you, before you stepped into the cage, did you like go back and watch like those first 3 or 4 UFCs with Hoist Gracie and did you have an idea or already know what jujitsu and judo was? Because you got a rear
Like
naked choke on your first fight.
like I said, I'd seen that early VHS tape with Don Fry fighting. I didn't go then and study there wasn't a bunch of film. I certainly on neither of those guys I fought at UFC 13. I didn't get to see who they were or have any idea about them until we stepped on the scale at the Holiday Inn
Wow.
before the competition. So um, thankfully, I was training and working with Rico Chipperelli at that time. And Rico had an amazing, he was a very smart guy, but saw how wrestling fit into fighting and jiu-jitsu situations, especially. And so he got me up to speed with what this guard was and what these jiu-jitsu guys were
Right.
doing. We came up with game plans to, take these guys. These were great big guys in the heavyweight division. So, try and get them on the ground, take away that size advantage by making them work and grapple and wrestle on the ground. And that worked out in both those first 2 fights. And then after that, obviously, started fighting. My next fight was against Vitor Belfort. There was several fights and fight footage of him and how he had progressed. So I definitely started studying footage. And I think that was a mindset that came from wrestling and wrestling for the national team that Rico was very adept at, studying, breaking guys down, where they seem to be strong, where they seem to be weak, how we kind of fit and mesh and put ourselves in the best position to win. That a lot of that came from Rico and from my years wrestling.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know who that name is, but Rico Chipperelli, that's an OG right there.
Yeah,
He's like kind of like a or John Danaher today, kind of in a way, but back in the day though. Did he show you that rear naked choke?
He was a national champ for Iowa, wrestled under Dan Gable. He was just this eclectic guy that had this clear understanding of jiu-jitsu and how jiu-jitsu and wrestling kind of meshed together. They formed the Raw team at that time. Me, Dan Henderson, Matt Lindland. There was a bunch of us, from the wrestling world that were kind of being represented by them. And they just felt like wrestlers were going to do very, very well in mixed martial arts. And so they kind of started managing a bunch of high class, world-class Olympic athletes and collegiate athletes at that time. And so they were definitely ahead of their time in their thought process and mindset.
Heck yeah.
Man, Dan Henderson and Matt Lindland. What was it like working with those guys back then? Before the MMA, had you already known them?
Oh yeah. We were on the national team together for years, trained together for years. So Danny and Matt and I all started the mixed martial arts journey around the same time. We founded Team Quest together and created our own gym and our own team back then, which was really kind of unheard of. I think Lions Den and Militich Fighting Systems were the only kind of MMA gyms are oriented specifically to mixed martial arts at that time. Man, it just became a great place. A lot of great mixed martial art fighters came out of there and came from that wrestling background. We seemed to attract other wrestlers that wanted to kind of try and do what we were doing at that time.
Yeah, it was amazing. Also, one thing you guys had going for you that really played against your opponents was you guys had a whole nother level of cardiovascular.
I think that's indigenous to wrestling. Absolutely. Conditioning is one of the few things in the sport that you can control. And so making sure that your conditioning is on point and you can go as hard as you need to go to make your opponent quit, to make him work harder than he wants to work was a very particular wrestling mindset. And then Greco, because of the upright posture and the pummeling, is kind of a relentless style of wrestling on top of that. So we definitely use that wrestler's mindset in our fighting style.
Yes. And so those first, I believe you won the first 4 fights. Now, when you came upon the fight with Ensign Inoue, have you ever heard of him?
I had met Egan. We were doing a lot of training in Portland. This was before Team Quest. At a JKD gym up there, one in Salem and one up in Portland with Matt Thornton and Steve Boyd. And they'd open their gyms and let us come in and train on their mats and work out with their guys. They were hoping to learn more wrestling from us, and we were trying to learn jiu-jitsu and some of the other stuff from them. And then I had a big falling out with Bob Marowitz and SEG, the owners of the UFC. We had spent 3 weeks negotiating a new contract as the heavyweight champ. They wanted me to fight Mark Coleman, which was fine, but they wanted me to fight for a third of what they had contracted to pay me. And I'm like, why would we do that? We're ready to defend the title, but you got to stick to the contract. And so they basically, their position was, I'm choosing not to defend my title, stripped me of the title, and had that tournament with Coleman, Randleman. Actually, Coleman wasn't in the tournament, but Randleman, Boss Rutan, TK Kosaka, Pedro Hizzo. There were some great matches that came out of that tournament when they took the belt away from me. I spent that next 2 years, training for the 2000 Olympic trials, and that's where I ended up fighting Ensign Inoue in a Shuto match through Rico. They got me into a Shuto match, a title match with him, and that was certainly a learning experience. I made a classic wrestler's mistake. I grabbed a collar tie from the guard position and drove in with my hips. That allowed Ensign that freed his hips up to move up into an armbar position and caught me in a solid armbar, popped my elbow pretty good, and I had to tap. So that was my very first loss in the sport.
But it's something we like to talk about. Some guys, I'm glad you're willing to talk about it. But yeah, the winning is great, guys, but you're going to have to come across, if you do it long enough, you will come across your first loss. That armbar that he did, was that something you had experienced before in training, or was that something kind of new to you?
We'd been in that, trained in that situation and knew and were aware of it and certainly seen it, but I probably wasn't as skilled or adept at countering it or not putting myself in that position to in the first place, honestly. Again, I think those losses are probably more important to my journey and my career than any of the wins. I never watched the fights I won. Why? I got the outcome I wanted. I'm sure there were still mistakes and things there that I could learn from, but I never really went back and watched those ones I won. The ones I lost, I watched repeatedly. I studied those because that was where the learning was going to happen. That's where I was going to become a better fighter and ultimately a better human.
That's so cool, man. So after that fight, you went back to the drawing board. Did you bring in, or did you seek out or travel around to different BJJ gyms?
There was a weird thing going on at that time. There wasn't a lot of BJJ guys that would allow you in there because they're like, oh, they were kind of trying to covet and protect their skill set because not a lot of people were adept. There weren't a lot of black belts in the U.S. There wasn't a lot of people that knew what jiu-jitsu was. And I think that was an error in judgment by my estimation. They closed their system. They would let us on their mats, but they wouldn't train with us. There were very few Brazilian black belts at that time that I could find that would roll with us, that would train with us and teach us
Really?
some skills. John Donahue was one of the few.
Yeah.
Eric Wilson was the other one. Were black belts and Gene LaBelle and in the Inosanto Academy and some of those great places. They got some heat for training with us, but they didn't seem to really care. So
was it politics? What's the reason?
Happy to share wrestling skills with them, and they were sharing jiu-jitsu skills with us, and there was kind of a give and take there. So that's just how it was. That was the mentality back then. And so, eventually we just started acquiring skills and finding more and more guys to train with and work out with and get better and better at it. And I think ultimately it was something I wanted to get really good at. And it wasn't used as a wrestler being on my back or operating from my back. It was foreign to me. So I started in training, especially at Team Quest, putting myself in that situation a lot, letting guys take me down that maybe weren't able to or didn't have the skill set to take me down most of the time, and putting myself in those positions that I saw as disadvantages, being on your back with somebody on top of you. A jiu-jitsu mindset was that's a neutral position. And I'm like, I still feel like I'm at a disadvantage here. So I think ultimately that led me into a mindset where I'll come across a guy like Josh Barnett, who had an okay wrestling background,
Yes.
but a very good submission guy.
Oh, yeah.
And we was scramble early in that fight, and I pulled guard. I had been doing that so much in training that I pulled guard and pulled that big guy on top of me, which was a bad idea.
Was that the first time that you had pulled guard in a match?
Yeah, and it was a bad. I think 9 times out of 10, there's no way Josh had the wrestling skills to take me down and put me on the bottom. And so I think that was a flaw in my thinking because I'd been trying to learn so much jiu-jitsu and gotten so comfortable that in the heat of it, I pulled guard instead of making him technically take me down and hold me there. And that loss forced me to readjust my training and readjust my mindset and go back to wrestling and let go of a little bit of trying to be a master jiu-jitsu practitioner. There was no way I was going to catch those black belts. They've been doing jiu-jitsu as long as I've been wrestling. So I had to shift my thinking a little bit. I started thinking more in a mindset of catch wrestling and using all the wrestling skills, making a guy, never conceding a takedown, making a guy take me down. If he was good enough to take me down, then I better have some jiu-jitsu skills to be able to survive there and scramble and get back up. But that loss was important. It made me change what I was thinking.
Was Josh Barnett at that time, was he under Matt Hughes or Matt Hume?
Yes, he was.
Remember Matt? Did you ever train with Matt at all?
I trained with Matt, and my first title fight was with Mo Smith. Matt and Mo ran the gym up there in Kirkland, Washington. I had that first match with Pedro Hizzo when Dana White and company bought the UFC from Bob Meyerowitz and SEG. And, they signed Pedro to a huge deal. I'm this 39, almost 40-year-old champion in the heavyweight division. I don't think they thought I was very marketable. And I think they wanted to find a way to get rid of me. And they thought Pedro was going to do that for them. Now, it was a tough fight, toughest fight I've ever been in, I think. But I ended up winning the unanimous decision. And I was due to renegotiate my contract with Zuffa, the new company that just bought the brand. They said, okay, we'll sign you to a new 3-fight deal, but you have to give Pedro an automatic rematch because they had him signed to a 9-fight deal, and they wanted this young Brazilian to be their heavyweight champ. I said, okay, I'll do that. And 6 months later, I was scheduled to fight him again, and I did not want to get kicked in the leg like that again.
No, I remember that. I remember that, man.
He kicked me 14 times in my left leg, my lead leg, and man, I did not walk right for 3 weeks after that fight. I was like, I need to figure this out. And so I went to Mo. Mo was my first title fight. And
was Mo the first kickboxer that you trained with?
Yeah, first kickboxer that I really trained with. So I went up to him and Matt Hume's school, trained a lot there. That's when I first met Josh Barnett. But I trained with Mo a lot, and he changed my stance. He changed a bunch of things about what I was doing and what I knew about the sport of kickboxing and how it fit into MMA. So that was really good for me. Obviously, the second fight with Pedro was I TKO'd him by the third round. He didn't kick me once. I actually kicked him a couple times. So things had changed technically and tactically for me a lot between the first and the second fight. And that was all due to Mo Smith and Matt Hume. I brought a bunch of new drills and a bunch of new tactics and technique into Team Quest. Nate Corey kept coming up and staying with me during those times when I would go up and train with Matt Hume. And something that we noticed was they rarely sparred live in their gym. They did a bunch of drills and a bunch of techniques, but there was no, red flag days. Like we were used to at Team Quest coming in every single day and just strapping it on and going live. That was a wrestler's mindset. Consequently, I don't think we were learning a bunch of new skills. We weren't putting ourselves in a bunch of situations to learn some new stuff. And so training with those guys, I thought, man, how do you guys get in shape for a fight when you're not doing a lot of live sparring? And then I realized at the same time, we're probably doing way too much live sparring. We're beating each other up every single day. And so that forced me to really think about what we were doing in the gym. And we started finding that happy medium. We would 2 or 3 days a week, we would come in and strap it on and do a lot of live sparring. The other days we'd do situations and drills and develop new skills, and kind of found this middle of the road happy medium between the two systems that we were seeing. And I think it helped us all out a lot. Saved us a little wear and tear on our bodies from going so hard all the time. And we started learning and developing new tactics and new techniques. And that's where a lot of cage fighting techniques using Greco and using a lot of the other wrestling skills we all possessed started to come to the forefront.
Now, you mentioned, between the first fight with Pedro and the second fight with the leg kicks, because I still see it happening in today's, the evolution of MMA. Maybe they're going a little lower on the leg, but there's still guys that kick the thigh. What was one of the main things that Mo taught you to change that up to avoid those leg kicks?
A wrestler's stance is about 60% of the weight on your front leg, and you use that back leg as a rudder to to pivot and change your direction when you're tied up with somebody you're wrestling, and you drive off that back leg to penetrate and take somebody down. Kickboxing, it's exactly the opposite. About 60% of the weight is on your back leg, so you can raise that front leg easier to check a kick or to lean into a kick so you don't take the full brunt of a big blow to your thigh muscle. And that's the biggest thing that he changed. He changed some of my punching and how I was punching, the mechanics of how I was doing it, and it became better, much better than it was through his years and years and years of experience as a kickboxer. So I had an open mind. I had no ego. I felt honored that he would let me in there, after we fought for the title in my very first title fight. But he was such a nice guy and a gregarious guy. He was happy to have us in there. So it worked out. I learned a lot from Matt Hume, a bunch of drills from Matt as well, the professor. and they were gracious in opening their gyms to us and letting us in there to exchange information and train with those guys. They had a great group. So
Yeah, Matt, he seemed just like a wizard of the deal. Who was Matt under? Who did Matt come from? Like Gene LaBelle or one of those guys?
that's a good
Or
question. Honestly,
Japan, maybe?
I'm not sure where his lineage went back to, and who he trained a lot under. I know him and Mo were working together at that time, and Matt was more the grappler and kind of like you
Right.
said, the submission guy, and Mo was the kickboxing striking side of the house. But it was a pretty good group of guys up there.
Now, your first fights, were they like the first 5 fights, were they all heavyweight?
I didn't come down to light heavyweight until 2003. So that first 6 years
Chuck
was
Liddell?
was all at heavyweight, and then in '03 I got the chance to come down, and I'd suffered 2 losses. I lost to Barnett, he popped positive, and I lost to Rico Rodriguez, and I had one more fight on my contract. I think they were licking their chops, thinking they were going to finally be rid of me, and they set me up to fight Orlovsky, and then 3 weeks before the Orlovsky fight, he broke his hand in training. And so they said, you know what? We can't find anybody on this short of notice. What do you think about coming back in June and fighting Chuck Liddell for the interim title at light
Oh
heavyweight?
yeah.
I can make light heavyweight easy. That'd be great. So that's what ended up happening. As it turned out, my youngest son was born the night I was supposed to be fighting Orlovsky down in Florida. And
Oh wow.
as it worked out, I was home for the birth and all of that. I didn't miss any of that. So, things worked out. Now, I think my wife at the time was hoping that that would be my last fight and that I would retire. And so that threw a major monkey wrench, going in a month and a half later and beating Chuck in that first fight relaunched my career. What will look like I might be coming to an end, pushing 40 and having lost 2 fights, coming down to 205 fighting Chuck literally skyrocketed my career back up into lasting another 7-8 years. So, but it was kind of the undoing and the demise of the marriage. So
Sorry about
there
that.
was definitely a trade-off there.
Oh yeah, that happens, man. It happens, but you're fulfilling your dream, man. That's the cool thing
The
about it.
passion, sure, no doubt about
Your
that.
passion and yeah, your path down the road. So, and you beat Chuck Liddell with the TKO. You know, as a wrestler beating striker type of deal.
Yeah, I had to just make friends with the potential possibility that this guy could knock me out. I had watched tape after tape. He had
Right.
that unique ability. A lot of guys gave him so much respect because his striking was so on point that they didn't kind of push into that range of exchanges and try and beat him to the punch. And we watched
Wow.
the footage, and I spent a bunch of time cutting him off, learning how to the footwork to cut him off and use that head fake, make him think I was coming to take him down, to set up that big overhand right and follow that big overhand right with a hook. We trained and trained and trained. Dave Hagen was the kickboxing guy at Team Quest at that time. He's gone on and done some great judging and refereeing now in the sport. But Dave Hagen was the kickboxing guy, and man, he spent countless hours working with me on those entrances and closing the distance with Chuck and trying to hit Chuck first. And I don't think Chuck expected that. I think he expected that same kind of respect
Yes,
that so many other
definitely.
guys had given him that allowed him to find that rhythm and range and land that shot. And I think right from the opening bell, I kept him off balance. I landed that overhand right, and then that set me up to take him down and take him out of that realm of striking too. So obviously the second and third fights, he made big adjustments in his footwork and how he approached me after that first fight.
Yeah, you guys are two legends of the sport, man. If people can go back and watch these fights, I definitely admire them, man. So you guys fought him 3 times?
3 times, yeah. We were kind of the first big trilogy in the sport.
Now, did you also fight Vitor 3 times?
I did fight Vitor 3 times. The second fight was kind of the first time that Zuffa and Dana White and company had gotten behind me. They chose to do it Super Bowl weekend in Vegas, which is a big weekend for the tourists and everybody coming in for Super Bowl parties and stuff. And they decided to call that show the Supernatural, and kind of got behind me and marketed me a little bit against a rematch with Belfort from back, in '97 when we fought the first time. Um, it was crazy. Came out and had, again, practiced a lot of things to close the distance and get my hands on Vitor, not unlike the first time we fought, and really kind of make him wrestle me and make him work. Slipped that first punch and got right to the clinch, but something happened. I could not open my eye. My left eye slammed shut, and I didn't feel any pain, but I could not get my eye to open. And I was hanging in the clinch there, and John could tell I was struggling with my eye closed, that something was wrong. So we stopped the fight, called the doctor in. The doctor came in and literally touched my cheek and pulled my eye down, and the blood just came gushing out. Vitor had grazed me with his left hand. He started all of his combinations with his left hand, and he's a southpaw fighter, which
Yeah,
is unique.
southpaw.
And it's a straight blast kind of a punching combination. He comes right at you, and
Yeah.
if you're standing there in front of you, he's going to run you over. I
Yes.
had slipped that punch, but the corner of his pinky, where the seam of the gloves came together, grazed my eyelid and sliced it from top to bottom. It was really, really weird. And that's the windshield wiper to your eye. Basically, it's pretty serious to have a cut from top eyelid to bottom eyelid. It was very strange. So the doc stopped the fight, and I went straight to surgeon that night to get the eyelids stitched up. And it was a legal punch, so it counted.
Yeah.
Belfort was the new champ, and it was a lot of tragedy, a bunch of stuff going on around that fight. Vitor's sister had been kidnapped and being held for ransom. There was and that didn't get
Good old
settled.
story.
So, yeah, it was a horrible thing. So, one part you feel some empathy, and I can't imagine trying to go through a fight camp and get ready for a big fight like that with all that personal stuff going on. And I really felt for Vitor at that time. And then, of course, they asked him to give me the rematch because of the controversy of the first 25 seconds of that fight, having that cut. We fought again in less than 6 months, and it kind of went how I thought the fight was going to go in the first place. I closed the distance and wore him out pretty badly in 3 rounds.
You came back with the TKO on that third fight, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was a bloody mess. I had him down in both the first and second round. At the end of the second round, he didn't even stand up. He stayed seated on the cage. I'd landed a bunch of elbows and cut him up in several places, and then he didn't last long as we got into that third round. So there I was back in the title belt.
Back in the road again. Well, man, the time is going by so quick. We got to get into some of these other type of questions that we asked Randy, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You know what? Like some history of Randy Couture, if you don't mind. What was your childhood like growing up, man? With the
I
family,
grew
with
up.
your mom and dad.
I grew up about 30 miles north of Seattle, in a small town called Linwood, Washington,
Okay.
and went to Alderwood Junior High School, Oak Heights Elementary, Alderwood Junior High School, Linwood High School. I was in a single parent household. My dad was he was a deadbeat. He was never really around. He never paid support. I was lucky if I got to see him once a year. Usually that was hunting season. He would come and take me out of school and hunt, which I think is one of the reasons why I still love to hunt to this day. My mom worked her butt off. There was a chore list, and I was the oldest with 2 younger sisters. The chore list better be done, or there was going to be hell to pay with mom when she got home from work. But we didn't want for nothing. We were a lower middle class family. I think my mom was a meat wrapper, pretty good benefits and pretty good pay with that job, but she was getting no support, no help from anybody. My junior high year, she married a guy named Don Elstad, and he was an interesting guy. He worked at the paper mill, a shift worker. He was a pretty verbally abusive guy. He never smacked me or my sisters physically, but he was an incessant tease to the point of being cruel. So, there was definitely some lessons there and some challenges there for all three of us kids. By the time I was a senior in high school, that marriage was falling apart, and my mom was going through her second divorce. So, um, you know, uh, that kind of adversity is the kind of stuff you have to face up to and find a way to get through and find a way to stay positive. A lot of people, athletics saved me. I think a lot of people would have used those circumstances to make a lot of bad decisions.
Yes,
And I think
happens all the time.
because I had solid coaches and guys that took care of me, kicked me in the ass when I needed it, and gave me the encouragement when I needed that. Those coaches were pretty important guys in my life, and those coaches mostly came from wrestling. So again, I think athletics and wrestling specifically kept me, making better choices and not being too much of a knucklehead, honestly. So things
That's
worked out.
awesome, man. See that, guys? I know a lot of myself. I'm a coach. Archie is, and we got a lot of guys around here that, we don't fight or compete anymore, but that's what we're doing. Hey, man, coaches, you could change a dude's life. You might be teaching a whole room. You know what I mean? There could be a whole room full of dudes that are going through it, and there might be one guy that's really going through it.
Yeah.
A coach can change a guy's life. A coach, a teacher, things like that.
You
It's
never
great.
know. I mean, as coaches, you never know. You never really dig that deep on a personal level with the guys that you're coaching and that you're influencing. So I don't think my junior high school Coach Casper, knew what an impact he was having on me. Coach McAvoy in high school, I don't think he understood or knew how much that mentoring and that work ethic and all those things that I learned by being coached by those guys meant to me and my journey, my upbringing. So I think it's something to keep in mind for sure.
Definitely probably changed your whole path in life. There's no telling what would have happened. Now, we also have a lot of young bucks around here, like the Central Valley, just like with the wrestling. There's a huge MMA scene here. And at the casinos like Lemoore, California, and Porterville, I've seen your students fight out here. Anyway,
Yep.
there's a huge MMA scene. We got all these young guys that are coming out of wrestling and boxing and jiu-jitsu, but that want to get into MMA. And what advice would you give to these young guys, to a guy that's got everything else going for him, school, job, this and that, but he really wants that drive for MMA? What advice would
Yeah.
you give to a guy?
Make sure you get your education. Uh,
Hear that?
don't quit school to be a professional fighter. Look, first of all, it's a tough way to make a living. Getting punched in the face for your money is not an easy way to make a living. And look at the percentage of people that make it to that highest level that actually start breaking into six figures. There's a whole list of guys that never make it that far. So having that other thing to fall back on is very, very important. It's the same thing. Everybody wants to be a state champion, and everybody wants a college scholarship to go wrestle in college. That's a unique, very small percentage of people that actually make it to that level. So you have to be realistic and be honest with yourself. Get your education. There'll be plenty of time to fight. Um, Hopefully, you're already studying some form of wrestling and some form of striking. Um, and I think any of the grappling sports, they're all very, very similar in mindset. Um, so, start training, and find a team. This may be an individual sport. You may walk those 4 steps up into that cage by yourself, but you're only as good as the guys you're training with. And if you're training with a bunch of knuckleheads that are out to prove that they're better than you are, then you're in the wrong place. That ego is only going to get in the way and only going to stand to potentially get you injured. So yes, we push each other to the limit. It's a contact sport, but those teammates of mine, they're my best friends. They're the ones that pushed me. They're the ones that are honest with me. Didn't blow smoke up my hind end. They were honest and told me exactly where they thought I stood and what I needed to work on. And that's an important part of it. So find that team, find that environment where you can flourish, where you're going to be challenged to the max, but at the same time, you're going to be allowed to flourish and get better and use the gifts that God gave you as an athlete, as a person, to your full advantage.
Okay, so another thing, I was just talking yesterday with a student. A lot of times you have a team, You know what I mean? They're your friends, your buddies. You're learning a lot. You're doing good. But maybe you might be one of the better guys in the gym when it comes to sparring or rolling and grappling. How do you feel about, or what do you think a guy is? Is it cool to go, to seek out another gym or train with another gym to find some guys that can push you and work you?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you're going to swim in the same pond for a while, and it's going to become stale. You guys know each other so well. You're not being challenged. If you're not being tapped out on a fairly regular basis and getting hit or kicked on a fairly
There's a
regular
problem.
basis,
There's a
you're probably
problem.
you're the big fish in that pond, and you need to find a different pond to play around in and learn some new perspectives and have some guys challenge you. That's how I feel about it. And that was
Agree,
something
totally.
we always tried to do. First of all, we kept an open gym. So anybody wanted to come train with us, we would allow them to come train because we wanted to learn from them. And that's where we learned new skills and new perspectives and new training environments. It was bringing those new people in to Team Quest. And just like, Matt Hume allowing us to come up there and train with him in Kirkland, I went to a lot of places like that to get to rub elbows with new guys with new perspectives and new skill sets. And I always came away from those situations with new things to bring back to my own gym and pass those things on and work on those
Yes.
things and kind of make them our own. So I think having that open mindset is very, very important to allow you to continue to progress and not be the big fish in a small pond.
And like I was telling a guy yesterday, you don't have to leave your team behind. You know what I mean? I think a coach should be cool. Hey, I should be cool. If you want to go over here, I send them to a school to get some better jujitsu in, to get tapped out by guys. I just tell them, you need to be humble. You need to go in there with the great attitude. You don't have
Yeah.
to leave the team to do that. And bringing the stuff back to the gym, that's an important. Not every guy can do that. You know what I mean? Not every guy can do that, of course. But definitely, you got to do that, guys. You got to work with people and get worked. Now, the backup plan, Randy. It seems like you probably had a backup plan way early in your MMA days. But at what point, in your MMA career and UFC, did you go, you know what? This might be coming to an end soon. I want to do acting, or I want to do this. What am I going to do to make money when I get out of this UFC?
Yeah. The transition for a professional athlete in any sport, but certainly in mixed martial arts, when it's time to walk away, that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do. Uh, it becomes a big part of who we are, our identity. And so to just think you're going to drop that and walk away from that's a very difficult thing to do. I've been very fortunate when I walked away from the uniform and being a soldier, I had college staring me in the face and college wrestling. So I had goals. I had a new purpose. I was going to be an NCAA champion and be one of the best in college wrestling and get my degree. And when I left uh, college, I had coaching, and I was coaching at Oregon State and still competing and trying to make that Olympic team. That was my purpose. I think that's a thing we lose. Here we are, Superman, literally fighting at some of the best in the world, and at some point, your body's going to betray you, and it's going to be time to walk away. Making a rational decision, going away, or letting it go on your own terms is a huge thing, and I feel fortunate that I was able to do that. I didn't have some doctor or promoter telling me I shouldn't do it anymore. Um, but it took
You
me a
made the
while.
decision.
Yeah, took me a while. It took me a year to kind of make friends with that. But once that thought entered my mind, I had to be honest and realistic and rational, and make that decision. Um, I don't think that's an easy thing. Fortunately for me, the acting door had opened in 2000 with Cradle to the Grave, and it was something I was intrigued by. I took some acting classes. I ended up getting an acting coach and started getting more jobs, but I never let one of those acting gigs interfere with a fight or training camp. That was where my bread was buttered. That was where my passion was. And then when I retired in 2011, that freed me up to pursue the other business things, the clothing line, the gyms, the other stuff I had going on, and pursue acting with more fervor and a little more direct approach to acting. And so I, again, felt fortunate that I had this purpose already built in. I'd already started the acting ball rolling. It wasn't like I was lost and needed to find something to do. That was already going, and now I could just dedicate all the energy that I was putting into MMA into that as well. So I feel very fortunate to have been able to do that. A lot of guys struggle with letting it go and having that new purpose, that new thing to focus on. We're very competitive people. We're very special.
Yes.
I think that's what makes us good at fighting. But that can be a tough thing to unwind and walk away from too.
Definitely. And Cradle to the Grave. Let me see if my memories
That's
serves me right. Jet Li.
Jet Li and DMX.
Yeah. What was
DMX
that
just
like working with Jet Li, man?
it was really interesting being on set. I felt like I was at Oz,
How
and
was
getting to
his
see behind
mentality?
the curtain. You know, getting to
Yeah.
see behind the curtain who's making all
Cool
the smoke.
guy? Was he a pretty
So
cool guy?
I didn't actually have any scenes with DMX. I did have a fight scene with Jet Li. That was the first time I got to meet him.
Right.
Uh, Tito and Chuck were both in that film as well. In
Uh-oh.
the same fight scene, and they actually fought each other in the movie, which was interesting because that was the same time that, you know, Chuck wasn't willing, or Tito wasn't willing to fight Chuck because he considered them friends and they were training together a lot. There seems to be two sides to that story. Chuck has a little different version than Tito does, but that's what ultimately led to me fighting Chuck and then fighting Tito, was what was going on in the MMA world at that time when we all three did that movie.
Now we got a
Wow.
question coming in from Bone QQ. I'm probably saying that QQ, maybe saying it wrong. How did it
We
feel?
French.
There you go. Bon oui oui. Respect. Thanks for asking a question, guys. How did it feel beating James Toney and bringing respect to the sport of MMA?
You know, James was a formidable opponent. I studied boxing tape on him. I knew who he was and had met him a couple times before that fight was laid on. I think I got the nod. I think they were actually originally talking to Chuck Liddell about fighting James because James was calling out everybody in MMA
Right.
and saying he was going to knock everybody out. I think they were a little worried that Chuck might actually try and stand up and box with James. And so
Oh.
I ended up getting the nod to fight that fight because they knew I was going to kind of figure him out. And you know, I took him seriously. I knew if I stood around in front of a guy like that with his shoulder roll, left hook, I mean, he was a very, very good striker, a multi-time world champion in boxing.
Yes.
I
No
took
joke.
those skills and that skill set very seriously. The real question was, how much MMA was he going to be able to learn in 4 months? I think we answered that in about 45 seconds when I took him down. He did the dying cockroach. He literally let me climb right up in the mount and had no answer for the ground game. So I was honored to be able to represent the sport of mixed martial arts in that age-old question of boxing versus MMA. Why do they get paid so much more? You know, all these other things that were going on at that time. So
Well, it's still going on. Okay, you talk a
Right.
little bit about that.
it is
Yeah.
still going on, unfortunately. And I think it's one of the areas where we have a lot of time to grow and space to grow in mixed martial arts. And that's why I'm excited to be a part of the PFL, Professional Fighters League. I feel like they're giving the fighters a better shake. It's a format
Yes.
that allows them a meritocracy. They got their own fate is in their hands. They got to go out and win fights and score points to get a shot at that title every year and a shot at that $1 million. And there's very few of us that worked ourselves up into that top 2 or 3% of guys that got 6-figure contracts and little pay-per-view money and stuff like that. So I think what the PFL is doing is spectacular for the sport.
Yeah, PFL, they're bringing in some good fighters too, man.
Yeah. Hey,
Definitely.
Randy, are you still part of the union's fight that's going out there? I know there was a victory about a month ago or two recently.
I am still involved with the MMAFA, the Mixed Martial Arts Fighters Association. It's not really a union. It's more of a guild because we're all 1099 employees
Right.
or contracted employees. So the union model doesn't really work because of our, the situation that we're in. So I think if we're going to affect this sport, we need to unite as fighters and demand at least some minimum criteria for pay, try and get some of the other things that other professional athletes in our society enjoy, like a 401k and some health insurance would be awfully nice as fighters. So, but until we can educate, especially those top tier fighters, to put it on the line and hold the promoter's feet to the fire, it's not going to happen. That's the
Wow.
truth of the matter.
So you've never, in any of the leagues or anything, you've never seen anything like a 401k or an insurance or anything like that come to
No,
play?
no.
I don't think
And
so. It's unfortunate, man.
they did because of me standing up and kind of going against the grain with Zuffa and Dana White and their contracts and some of the stuff in their contracts. The unfortunate downside to that is they closed a bunch of loopholes that we took advantage of. The other thing that they did was create an accident insurance for the fighters. So at least if they got injured in training camps, they had this accident insurance, which is at least a step in the right direction. Is
Yeah.
it health insurance? No. If I get sick, I'm on my own. But if I blow my knee out training for a fight, I at least have this accident insurance to fall back, offset
That's something
some
good.
getting my knee fixed if that's the case. I'm just using that as an example. So that was at least a step in the right. But I still think we have a long way to go to get our fair share of the money that comes in from every single event in this sport as fighters.
Yeah, definitely. I've always felt like with the MMA, it's like the promoters and the matchmakers and the top guys they're making the big bucks. What do you with boxing though? I don't, it's been around for so long. What is the difference, man, of the money
I can
that
tell you
boxers make?
the
Yeah,
difference
people want to know.
The difference is in 1996, there was federal legislation passed called the Muhammad Ali Act that created transparency in the sport and eliminated the exclusivity of those contracts. That shackled guys like Don King and Bob Arum who were taking advantage of a lot of boxers. And we've all seen those tragic stories of the guys that were down and out after being a champion of the world and making millions of dollars in the sport. So unfortunately, we are not covered by the Muhammad Ali Act. It simply states boxing. So that's one of the things that the MMAFA has been trying to do is lobby to get the definition changed from boxing to combative sports athlete and enjoy those same transparencies that boxers enjoy. Be able to represent ourselves properly, know how much money's coming in from any event that I fought on. And how am I supposed to know my worth in the marketplace unless I know how much money came in from that event that I fought on? How do I then go to the next event they want me to fight on and negotiate a fair deal? There is no transparency in MMA. Not only is there no transparency, but they're trying to own all your ancillary rights. It's a WWE model that they're using. They own all those. If you want to write a book, you want to do a movie, you want to do any of these other ancillary things with your name and likeness, you're going to have to get their permission to do that. And guess what they're going to want to give you that permission? A piece of the action.
They want a piece of that action, baby.
It goes down
that
to money every. That's why I'm persona non grata with those guys to this day, because I fought for those ancillary rights. I wouldn't just sign that contract and give them away. And a lot of guys did. A lot of guys either didn't understand what the ancillary rights were or didn't care. I was fortunate enough to have good management at that time, battle management, Jeremy Lapp and Peter Levin, that educated me because I didn't know what they were either. And so we went to bat for that stuff. And, that put me in the position that I'm in now. So
what about the current generation of UFC fighters, the new guys, the guys are the older guys with more experience? How are they dealing with this today? Do you have an idea?
At the end of the day, we have a passion for this sport and we just want to fight. We want to pursue what it is we're passionate about. And especially the younger guys, they're not always, we're a bit egocentric. We don't always think ahead or forward thinking enough to really look at the big picture and recognize that the average guy is going to have 6 years to compete in this sport. Now, some guys have stretched it out further. I certainly stretched it out further, but the average career is in mixed martial arts as a professional fighter is about 6 years. So that means you've got 6 years to make the kind of money that you could potentially make in the sport of mixed martial arts. You better sign good contracts and take care of that money so that when you do have to hang them up, sooner or later, you're going to have to hang them up. Hopefully you've been smart with that money, taking care of it, and now it's in a position to work for you instead of you going out there and getting punched in the face for that money.
So does the UFC offer any financial advice like how to invest or anything such as that? How to be smart with your money?
They try to do a fighters expo or something every single year with all the fighters that they have under contract and talk about some of that stuff. But at the end of the day, they're still holding the reins. They're still forcing guys to sign these 17-page crap contracts that sign away all their ancillary rights. And very few guys have the leverage or are willing to put that leverage into use and fight for those things. So, until we get the Ali Act amended to cover us and give us the same protections. The other thing that's going on is the class action lawsuit against the UFC. That could potentially change the way they do business to you. That's a long play. Who knows how long it's going to take to settle all of that. Getting the class certified this last year was a huge step in the right direction. But we'll see how all that unfolds and how that affects the way they do business. It's hard to say.
Yes, especially after I see this, like this last fight with in that the show called Trillers with the Jake Paul kid and Ben Askren,
Yeah,
and the money that they made.
We have to quit making these YouTube people famous.
Yes.
They're basically becoming famous by being assholes.
Yep.
And we're buying into that. It's a huge piece of our society now, and it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate, man.
Yeah. Listen, guys, I have to step off. I've got to be on another podcast right now. So
we're gonna wrap it up right now, brother. Hey, let me just say, man, hopefully maybe some other time, another day, we could hopefully we did you right. We can get you back on and have you as a friend of our show. Randy Couture, it was a great honor. Hey,
Inside
man.
the Dojo, Tom.
Yep. Maybe we can come. We do another show called Inside the Dojo where we travel to your gym and you can toss Archie around, suplex him, have one of your guys kick him in the leg. Hey, anyhow, Randy, everybody out there. Like yes, it's a great time. You throw Archie around, he falls, we laugh. Good time. So we go out to Vegas. Anyhow, hey, thank you so much, brother. You look great, man. Good job with your son and your family. You're obviously doing great things in life. Archie, thanks again for the show. Randy, we're going to let you off, but we're going to stay live for a couple more minutes, guys. Randy, hey, thank you so much, bro, for being a great influence, not on my life, but Archie's and a lot of our people that are watching out there. And a lot of people out there, man, saw you and got their start in MMA. Hey, thank you very much for what you have done, my brother.
Thank you, Randy.
That. Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully we'll talk to you another day, bro.
Take care. Be well.
All right. Thank you very much. There it is, guys. Man, our guest, Archie, that was so cool. The time went by too quick. I had all these questions to ask, but just, man, dude, a guy like that, like I said, back in the day, I remember watching it live, guys, but watching him with a UFC belt step into that octagon at age 46, dude. Not many 46-year-olds out there today can say that. I know the way my body feels right now. Hey, for a dude to go in there at 46 and do that was something else. But Randy Couture changed the game of a lot of fighters with that dirty boxing where he would use the Greco underhooks and use that Greco wrestling and mixing collar ties and punches in at the same time. It changed the game quite a bit. Very interesting thing that happened in MMA at that time. So, yeah, that was awesome, man. I can't say enough about Randy Couture. What do you think, Archie?
He's just one of the best ambassadors, to the sport in all respects, and everything he has said, it comes from experience. I mean, he was there from day one, right? And he's still out there trying to help fighters, from having a gym to working with PFL. Randy's
you can still train with him. Guys can still reach out. You can still go train at Randy's gym. You just got to, you got to go there with him.
Las Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got a few of those extreme couture gyms around, but like you said, he's in Vegas. And hey, you want to go over there with a good attitude, or you can go in there with a dumb attitude and have a bad day. But if a guy goes in there humble with a good attitude like he's got, you might just learn something, guys. So me and Archie, we're about to start doing the inside the dojos again. And man, we got Dewey Cooper. We got a few different Gracies. We got Randy Couture. We've got all kinds of invites. It's going to get good, man. The show's going to keep growing. This is only episode, if I'm right, 124 and episode 55 of the virtual ones. So what do you think, Archie, at our point right now with the MMAFightPass.com?
No, I think this is a great time. We hung in there throughout the COVID. We didn't let any of that stop us. We hung in there with the technology, adapting. And I think we're going to be going to Las Vegas at the end of the month here, Tom, so we can do a tour and some inside the dojos on your days off during the week.
I got 6 guys from Team KO Farmersville competing at the Naga here in 3 weeks. I might just take a trip out there.
Oh, that's about the same time I was talking about. Why don't you go out there?
Yeah, just to coach. And props to my Team KO guys out there. Danny Valadinos and the guys, they give me a place to train over there. Hey, and if you don't have money and you can't afford the jiu-jitsu in the valley, I don't charge. When I'm at Team KO, there's no charge, and Danny doesn't charge. If you can throw in a little something to help out, that's great. But if you don't have money and you just want to come and get some a good little lesson or some sparring, come in with the open mind is all I can say, because those Farmersville kids are tough, man. Look at Carlin Gracie came to the show. Come to Brazil, he says. We're friends with a few different Gracies, but I've really became friends with Carlin Gracie, and a lot of people have never heard of Carlin Gracie, but he's over there in Brazil, and man, he's up there in the ranks, and he's got a ton of knowledge. But he's offered us a free place to stay in Brazil, if we can get over there. So I've been to Brazil once, had a fabulous time. I'd love to go back, Carlin. Maybe you might see me and Archie over there. You got to bring us to one of those fine churrascarias, though.
Yeah, heck yeah, we need to go. Definitely go to Brazil, and
he says we can stay in his house, bro.
I know. So we got room and board. We got gyms nearby. We just gotta take some money to eat our fancy.
Bro, it's cheap over there. Hey, Horion Gracie has invited us. We got all kinds of places to go. So we'll also here real quick. We're going to have our studio going again, and we'll have more local guests coming inside. But you guys can always reach out to us. I've got people now hitting us up with sponsorships. So we'll work with anybody. It's not the same price for everybody. But if you want your sponsor, these podcasts are going to start happening one or two times a week here pretty quick. So the sponsorships, we're always looking for it. We're trying to make the show grow. Our guests keep getting better and better as we go, if you haven't noticed. But we're not ever going to be too good for local people or people that are, you know what I mean, Archie?
No, absolutely.
If you want to get on the show and talk about stuff, just all you got to do is hit us up.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're also at the bottom. We got on our ticker board, June 6, 2021, Underground Fight Series. Register for this tournament, guys. If you guys want to get some good jiu-jitsu competition, be video streamed on 2 cameras, professional tournament ran live with Mr. Tom Owens right there as your master of ceremonies behind the mic.
Hey. Yeah, that's my new name, Master of Ceremonies. It involves all kinds of stuff. Guys, this live tournament that we're doing, it's great experience for you guys. I know a lot of you guys do the jiu-jitsu tournaments to get that experience to go into MMA, which is a great thing to do. The wrestling tournaments, the jiu-jitsu tournaments, boxing tournaments, Muay Thai, all that stuff is good because most of the guys that I teach at KO, their ultimate goal is to get into the cage, MMA. So they're going to that Naga tournament in Vegas just to get in front of a crowd and get experience. So anyhow, man, that was cool as heck, dude. Randy Couture, it took me a long time to get him on the show. Just like that, overnight we got him, dude. So you never know what's going to happen in this life.
Here's another request.
GSP. I'll reach out to him. Hey, GSP's a cool ass dude.
Yeah.
I think he would come on for sure. We got a lot of requests. One of the hardest guys that I really want to get has been Dan Severn. Hoist Gracie too. If anybody, Hoist Gracie is the guy that I saw, back in UFC 1, 2, and 3 that got me into jiu-jitsu, and it'd be a dream for me to get Hoist Gracie on. But what about you, Archie? Who's a guest that you would love to get?
I'd like to get Tito Ortiz on the show, Kleber Luciano, and Mrs. Oh my gosh, why am I going blank? Bellator champion, Mrs. Okay, I know she's not gonna be on the show anymore now.
You just screwed it all up, bro.
I just did, but those are 2, and she's part of the same family. Cyborg, Chris Cyborg.
Oh, dude.
Chris Cyborg, Tito Ortiz.
We gotta take the proper routes. One thing I know is like guys like Randy and Kung Lee and Dewey Cooper, we couldn't get those guys in the beginning because they didn't know if we're serious or not. But now you go to our website, MMAFightPass.com, and people now, these big guys can go through our list and they can see that we've done, some top guys, Ken Shamrock, a few of the Gracies, Randy Couture, Dewey Cooper, Kung Lee was one of our greatest ones so far.
Oh, yeah.
But, Cyborg would be great. Kleber Luciano, we got local people that are hooked up with him. He would be awesome because he's got deep roots that a lot of people don't know about him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of deep roots here in the Central Valley. You know who else has a lot of deep roots? Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is associated with a lot of people here in the wrestling
I think
valley.
I think he'd be cool enough to come on.
I think he will. Actually, Daniel Cormier definitely would be cool to come on.
John McCarthy, Herb Dean. There's a bunch of them, man. We're gonna keep going, but you guys can always hit up me, myself, Tom Owens, or Archie Tovar. You could also hit up James, our other guy, and I don't want to murder James' last name,
Gilliland.
Okay, James, and hey, I don't want to mess up her name either. His partner,
Kaylin Grigoriev.
Kaylin Grigoriev. Hey, her and James have been doing an awesome job every Friday. Thank you guys for being a part of the team. We're going to keep growing, guys. We're going to keep doing this thing. Everybody that comes up to me, some people off the street that I don't even know have watched our show, but a lot of it are people that we know. You know what I mean? Coworkers at work, people from the gym, family members. You know, everybody like that. Some people like us, some people don't. We're going to keep doing it regardless. So, anything else, Archie? You got any sponsors you want to throw a little shout out to?
Well, you know, lately we've had J&J Mobile helping us out quite a bit, website developer. We had, in addition to J&J Mobile, Voodoo, VODOO, the fightwear apparel place. And then, of course, our buddy from, Cream, CBD.
You're messing up, bro.
Gentle Art, CBD.
Gentle Art CBD. Guys, there's a bunch of CBDs out there. I've tried it. Believe me, man, when I started coming down with seizures and having problems with epilepsy, everybody was telling me to go to CBD. And of course, I tried all these different types. Gentle Art CBD is a great one. You know what I mean? They're not all created equal, that's for sure. Voodoo Apparel, guys, you want some legit good looking gear? Voodoo Apparel, they're right there for us. We got a lot of room. Carlin Gracie says Rico Chipperelli. Yes. Shout out to him.
We gotta find
a lot of people don't know who that is, man. Rico Chipperelli, I don't even know if, you know, my bad if he's even alive now. If he is, would be cool to get. But hey, hit us up, guys. Archie, we're at 116, brother. What do you think?
I think we need to get Rico Chipperelli. We need to get Rose Namajunas, Cyborg. I know everything's going well, Tom. This is our crew here. Check it out. Our other show, Kaylin and Mr. James.
Kaylin and James. Kaylin, they're both very, very knowledgeable. If you guys ever want to get on the show too and just talk, if you got some knowledge on MMA or you got something to say, like I said, you don't have to be a well-known person. Just something interesting you want to get off your mind. You know, share some knowledge. I got a couple other guys that are getting ready to come onto the show, and like I said, inside the dojos, there's a lot of gyms opening up in the valley. We got a surprise. I'm not going to talk about it yet, but there's a big gym that's going to be opening up in the valley. Something special: cages, boxing rings, big mat, weight room, CrossFit, yoga, you name it. And the main thing, tournaments on a regular basis, guys. Gi-less and gi, they're going to be holding tournaments. It's going to be really something else. It's going to be something special. It's going to give our Central Valley jiu-jitsu and submission grapplers something to do on a regular basis. Am I right about that, Archie?
Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of good announcements coming up here in the future. And you know, the Valley deserves a gym that that they can say, you know, this is something to be proud of, and like make it into a regional training center, right? So now at this point, anybody that comes from out of town, they know, okay, this is the gym to go to. Even those that are in town, you know, we'll have the toughest classes, and then you know, everybody wants to test
seminars.
All
types of seminars.
Oh,
we got people lined up. And here's a great thing, man, because what I really hate to, I'm not going to get into it, but oh man, it hits me to the heart when it happens. But people will be with a team for so long, and then they experience something different, and then all of a sudden they jump to another team. Hey, it happens, but you don't have to do that. Our gym, you can be in a gym that you've been there forever. You don't have to leave your gym and come. You can come and train for a day. You can come to the seminars. And guys, just some piece of advice. Some of those gyms you've been with, man, those are like family. They think of you as family. And when you just hop over like that, there can be some tension there. You don't always have to do that, but hey, you have it's your decision. You do what you want to do. I'm just saying, I wish all the coaches here in the Valley and everywhere have that mentality and teach your students, hey, you know what I mean? It's not a big deal. You want to go train over here at Homeboy's gym for the weekend? He's got a good guy to roll with. Go do it. Go learn something and bring it back to us. You know what I mean? It's a good thing to do. anyhow, our spot, everybody's going to be welcome. You come in with a good humble attitude. That's going to be the main thing. You know what I mean? Come in with a good attitude, and we can learn from you. You can learn from us. And man, the seminars we got lined up, they're going to be something special. That's all. That's all I know. All
Yeah.
types.
No, absolutely. You know, the connections that we're making through the show, and just all the special people that we're meeting. And, you know, I just can't, for me, Tom, and I know for you too, probably, I can't wait to get back on the road to do the Inside the Dojos.
Oh, bro.
Mark my words, Las Vegas is our first Inside the Dojo. There's so much.
Is that going to be the first one we're going to? Or,
Yeah, we're going to go.
We got like 3 gyms to go to in Vegas.
Oh my gosh. And they're all, from there, it's just going to explode.
And
all
then
right,
plus, me and Archie says he's going to go to a Circus Soleil that he's been wanting to see. So we're going to do that. And,
hey,
maybe hit a couple slots, all you can eat, some crab legs. You know what I mean?
We got a black belt teacher ready to go.
Dude, all I know is Archie goes into these inside the dojos and he lets these guys, you know, demonstrate their moves on it while I just videotape. So Archie's the one kind of in the danger zone. I just kind of watch and check it out. Right. Anyhow, we're going to be learning all kinds of stuff. And Carlin Gracie, he says, do you need teachers at this new school? Hey, Carlin, you're always going to have a spot over here, bro. I'm honored to be friends with you. And I'm glad that, Carlin Gracie, that you've kept in touch with me since the podcast. And you might have 20 cats, but dude, hey, Archie, thanks again, man, for letting me be a part of this, dude. I really appreciate it.
You know, we got a good thing going. We got a good team. There's like, what, 10, 15 of us, 20. But you know what? We're going to keep it going. And thanks to everyone for allowing us to keep doing this and you know, giving us the views.
Yep. So, guys, some people go to YouTube to watch the show. The main views we get are through Facebook, and then you go to MMAFightPass.com. If you want to watch it quick, go to MMAFightPass.com, go to the video section. You can literally go all through our shows. And yeah, there's some good ones to watch, man. I highly recommend the Kung Lee, both Crosley Gracie, Horion Gracie, the Ken Shamrock show. There's a bunch of them, but the Kung Lee show is a really, really good one that we did. Dewey Cooper, man, opened up his mind. Check that show out. You want to learn some good stuff about diet? Check out the Horion Gracie show. And, you know, there's a bunch of good ones, but guys, I highly recommend it. I feel like we're doing a good job, Archie. I didn't know how long this was going to last. We're at 124, dude.
I mean, and you don't even feel the time flying. But, you know, when you have a guest.
Hey, I've started all kinds of different things in life, bro. I won't even name them all, but there's just too many that I get into deep and then just, you know, back out of it or quit it. But I didn't know about this podcast, how it was going to work or if we would stick with it. But, you know, we've stuck with it. And I feel like, you know, it's fun. I really enjoy it. This is like a stress relief for me, man. You know what I mean? And, dude, we've gained a lot of stuff from it too, man. We get the training. I got the ring announcing experience. You know, announcers, we're getting into these shows and stuff. It's great, man. This has been a great experience. I'll thank all the guys that are helping us. John Carlton, Xavier, guys you guys don't even hear about or know, you know, that are out there helping us. They don't come on the show, but they're right there when we're doing tournaments and we're doing events. So thank you guys. Yeah, we got a steady little crew they don't get paid anything. Me and Archie don't really get paid anything, right? We're basically just doing this
pretty soon. As we get,
we hope to. But I'll be honest, dude, I would keep doing it. I love this, man. I love it. Yeah, it's going to be cool to get, you know, we're starting to get sponsors and make money, but that's like the first thing a lot of people ask me is how much do you make doing that? And honestly, you know what? Very little. And we're investing back into our company to make it grow bigger. So that's how you make things grow. And that's a hard part of people sticking with things. But you know, Archie, like you said, hey, in the very beginning, we're going to invest back into the company, and I've seen it grow from then. So yeah,
good things coming and happening right now.
They're happening right now. And Archie, man, you've been a good friend of me and like a brother. So thank you, James, Kaylin, Chris Ronquillo. We don't see you much. I hope you're getting better, brother. And I'll stop talking. Xavier Ortega, man, is a brother. John Carlton, a straight brother, dude. That you can call those guys. You can call those guys in the middle of the night, and they'll come for you. Not everybody has friends like that. So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. Let's
everybody out there.
Close it down.
we're going to close it down, guys. We'll see you on the next show. It'll be coming up soon.
Thank you. There you go. The broadcast has